At first, everything felt perfect. They were warm, affectionate, present. They made you feel like you mattered, like they saw you. You believed this was love, and maybe it was, but only when it served them. You start to notice a pattern. Every time you said no, they'd go cold. Every time you asked for something they didn't want to give, they'd withdraw. You'd express a need, and suddenly, the room got quiet. They stopped texting as much, stopped touching you. They'd get dry, distant, even sarcastic. But when you gave in, when you agreed, when you kept the peace, their affection came back, like flipping a switch. You didn't realize it at first, but they were training you to associate love with obedience. It's not the loud kind of abuse. It's not yelling or throwing things. It's subtle, it's quiet, it's invisible. And that's why it works so well, because you can't prove it. All you feel is emptiness and the pressure to do whatever it takes to make it go away. Now you start editing yourself. You don't speak up when something hurts because you don't want to deal with the cold shoulder. You stop expressing your needs because every time you do, they withdraw. You stop being you and start becoming what you think they want. But here's the real danger. You start thinking the love is real again once it returns. You see their affection not as a tool of control, but as a reward, and once you believe that, you become dependent because now your self-worth is tied to their approval. This is psychological abuse. The impact runs deep. When someone you care about repeatedly withholds affection or approval, it creates emotional starvation. You start to believe, if I just try harder, love will come back. But what you're really doing is chasing a high that they control. And over time, it teaches you something dangerous, that love is something you have to earn by sacrificing your needs, your voice, your identity. The Stoics warned us about this. Stoic wisdom says, he who angers you conquers you. And that applies here too, because they're not using anger to conquer you. They're using silence, withdrawal, coldness. But it still takes your power, if you let it. The Stoics believed in mastering the inner world, in learning to stand firm no matter how others behave. And here's the truth. Someone who truly loves you doesn't disappear when they don't get their way. They don't punish your honesty with distance. They don't teach you to fear rejection every time you speak your truth. How do you combat this? Recognize the pattern. Ask yourself, do they go cold every time I set a boundary? Detach from the reward. Their approval isn't love, it's control. Stop chasing it. Reclaim your power. Validate your own feelings. Approve of your own choices. Don't let someone else's inconsistency make you feel unworthy. Because love, real love, doesn't vanish when you disappoint someone. And someone who only loves you when you're easy to manage doesn't love you at all. They don't break you all at once. They chip away until you forget who you are. Not every insult sounds like an insult. Sometimes it's subtle. A raised eyebrow, a sarcastic tone, a joke you weren't laughing at. They don't say, you're stupid. They say, you really thought that was a good idea. They don't say, you're worthless. They say, I don't know how anyone else would put up with you. This is how constant criticism works. It's not one big moment, it's a slow erosion of confidence, identity, and self-trust. Like waves wearing down a rock, until you no longer recognize your own shape. At first you defend yourself, you explain, you justify, you try harder. But after a while, something changes. You stop pushing back and start agreeing with them. You begin to believe, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe they're right. I'm lucky they even stay. That's the most dangerous part, not that they criticize you, but that you start to believe it. Why do they do it? Control. Because someone who feels inadequate inside will try to feel powerful by making you small. And they'll disguise it as just being honest or say things like, I'm only trying to help you. But here's the truth. Real love builds. It doesn't belittle. Stoic wisdom teaches us to protect our mind from outside attack. Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. Epictetus. And when someone constantly criticizes you, they plant those imagined anxieties inside your mind, until you carry them around like your own voice. Here's how to break free. Watch their pattern. Do they ever lift you up, or just keep tearing you down? Separate truth from projection. Is what they're saying about you, or about their own insecurity? Guard your self-talk. Because the most dangerous abuser isn't just the one in front of you, it's the voice they leave behind in your head. Remember, you are not the version of yourself they convinced you to become. You're not too much. You're not too emotional. You're not difficult. You're not hard to love. You were just in an environment that punished your spirit for being whole. In Stoicism, we don't chase approval from the outside. We return to our inner reason. We remember who we are, even if someone tries to strip it from us. So when they mock, when they minimize, when they belittle, don't shrink. Rise. They didn't just ignore your feelings. They trained you to question if those feelings were even real. Emotional invalidation is one of the most quietly destructive forms of psychological abuse. It doesn't yell. It doesn't slam doors. It simply looks you in the eye when you're hurting and says, "You're overreacting. That didn't happen like that. You're too sensitive." And suddenly you're not just sad. You're ashamed of being sad. You're not just hurt. You're embarrassed for feeling hurt. This is how it works. You express an emotion. They deflect, deny, or diminish it. You doubt yourself. That self-doubt grows until you stop trusting your emotional compass. You no longer know, is this valid? Am I allowed to feel this? Maybe I am the problem. That's not love. That's emotional disarmament. Why do they do it? Because as long as your feelings are invalid, the spotlight never leaves them. If you bring up how they made you feel, they turn it into an argument about how you're too emotional. If you try to express pain, they frame it as drama or manipulation. And what happens? You go quiet. You suppress. You shrink. You become the calm one to keep the peace. But inside, you're a storm that's been silenced for too long. Stoic wisdom teaches us this. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize your mind is complicit in the provocation. Epictetus. In other words, the danger isn't what they say, it's when you start believing them. So how do you reclaim your emotional truth? Validate yourself first. If it hurt, it mattered. If it felt wrong, it was. You don't need permission to feel what's real. Refuse to debate your feelings. You're not asking for agreement. You're stating an experience. Detach from the need to be understood. Some people will never validate you because your clarity threatens their control. Let this be your turning point. You are not too sensitive. You are not dramatic. You are not crazy. You are reacting to real emotional neglect. And that reaction is a sign of your awareness, not your weakness. In toxic dynamics, invalidation trains you to betray yourself. But in healing, you learn that your emotions are not the enemy. They are messages. They are boundaries. They are wisdom trying to reach you through the noise. Honor that. Feel fully. Then move with clarity, not confusion. It wasn't about love, it was about control, wrapped in concern. At first, it sounds flattering. Where were you? Who were you with? Why didn't you answer? They tell you it's because they care, because they love you, because they just don't want to lose you. But love without trust isn't love, it's surveillance. Here's the catch. Toxic jealousy doesn't come in screaming matches. It creeps in through false intimacy. They'll say, "I just care so much I can't help it. I'm just protective because you mean everything to me." But what they really mean is, "I don't trust you, and I need control to feel secure." You begin to shrink without realizing it. You start deleting conversations before they see them. You turn your phone upside down. You second-guess posting a photo, replying to a friend, making plans. You begin living in reaction to their insecurity. And if you challenge it, you're told, "So you must have something to hide." This is how control is disguised as affection. So what's the real difference between love and possession? Love says, "I trust you to be yourself." Possession says, "You must change to make me feel safe." Here's what Stoic wisdom reminds us. He who is brave is free. Seneca. Love should never cost you your freedom. It should never ask you to shrink, to censor, to walk on eggshells. If someone's love makes you question your integrity, that's not love, that's fear, weaponized. So how do you combat jealousy disguised as care? Set boundaries early. Love isn't proven through surveillance, it's proven through freedom. Call out possessiveness without guilt. If their love can't handle your autonomy, it's not built to last. Don't shrink to soothe them. If someone only feels safe when you're small, they were never safe to begin with. Jealousy framed as love makes you question your intentions, but real love sees you clearly and still chooses to trust. You don't have to convince someone you're loyal, you just have to stop calling control connection. They made you feel like the center of the universe, then slowly convinced you that you were never enough. It always starts the same way. Intense, magnetic, unreal. They call you the one. They mirror your values, your humor, your dreams. They message you constantly, compliment you obsessively. You've barely met, but they're already talking about the future. You're not just falling for them. You're falling for the version of you they reflect back. And that's exactly the point. Love bombing is not love, it's strategy. It's a psychological rush meant to flood your system with dopamine, to make your brain associate them with emotional security. But once they've got you hooked, the shift begins. The compliments slow down. The good morning texts stop. The affection becomes inconsistent. You start to wonder if you did something wrong, and they make sure you think it's your fault. This is the devaluation phase, where the same person who once said you were everything now treats you like you're too much. They criticize you, compare you, withdraw from you, but never clearly enough for you to walk away. They leave you starving for the version of them you first met, the one who, by now, only exists in your memory. Here's the dangerous part. You don't want to leave, because you're convinced if you just try harder, that amazing version of them will come back, and they know that, so they breadcrumb. They give you just enough love to keep you chasing, just enough validation to keep you stuck in the cycle. But Stoic wisdom says, attach yourself to what is within your control. Epictetus. Love bombing followed by devaluation is a game you can't win, because the rules keep changing, and they control the scoreboard. You'll never be enough for someone who needs to break you to feel whole. So how do you break this cycle? Stop chasing the honeymoon version of them. That version wasn't real, it was bait. Document patterns, not promises. What they say means nothing if it doesn't match what they consistently do. Detach from fantasy. You didn't fall in love with them. You fell in love with the illusion they created for you. This is how people stay stuck for years, trying to recreate a love that was designed to disappear. The love wasn't unconditional, it was conditional. On your submission. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone, especially not someone who showed up like a dream, only to become your nightmare. They weren't just joking, they were testing how much disrespect you'd tolerate. It starts with a dig, a comment about your appearance, your intelligence, your past, delivered with a laugh, and the phrase, relax, I'm just joking. But your stomach drops, your chest tightens. You know that wasn't just a joke. This is gaslighting disguised as humor, a tactic that allows the abuser to say exactly what they mean, without ever taking accountability for it. If you call it out, they flip it on you. Wow, you're so sensitive. Can't you take a joke? Suddenly, your reaction becomes the problem, not their disrespect. Here's why it works so well. Humor is disarming. We're taught to laugh things off, to not make a scene, to go along to avoid tension. And abusers know this. They use jokes as a smokescreen, to insult, to control, to chip away at your self-esteem in plain sight. Over time, this form of gaslighting doesn't just hurt. It reprograms you. You start questioning your own judgment. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe they didn't mean it like that. You begin silencing yourself, accepting more, tolerating worse. All while they hide behind the illusion of lightheartedness. But Stoic wisdom teaches us, if someone can offend you with words, your peace is too dependent on their behavior. Inspired by Marcus Aurelius. This isn't about being offended, this is about being conditioned to laugh at your own pain. So how do you combat it? Call it what it is. If it hurts, it's not a joke. Humor shouldn't come at your expense. Watch how they react when you set a boundary. A respectful person apologizes. A manipulator doubles down and shames you for speaking up. Don't explain why it hurt. If someone cares, they'll stop, even if they don't fully understand. Your feelings aren't a punchline, and your discomfort isn't an overreaction. It's your intuition trying to protect you from people who get off on crossing your boundaries, then blaming you for bleeding. You're not too sensitive. You're waking up. And that clarity, that unshakable awareness, is the first step toward taking your power back. If any part of this video hit close to home, that's not just coincidence, it's recognition. Because psychological abuse doesn't always leave bruises, but it always leaves damage, the confusion, the guilt, the anxiety that something is wrong, but you can't prove it. That's not love. That's control. That's survival in disguise. But here's the truth. You are not dramatic. You are not broken. You are not too sensitive, and you were conditioned to tolerate pain that looked like affection and silence your needs to protect someone else's comfort. But you don't owe anyone your silence anymore. You owe yourself peace. You owe yourself protection. You owe yourself truth. Stoic wisdom says, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Marcus Aurelius. So change the narrative. Start coloring your mind with self-respect, with boundaries, with healing. This video wasn't made to just expose abuse. It was made to end the cycles that keep you stuck in it. If this message gave you clarity, share it. If you're still healing, comment, "I deserve peace" below. And if you want to rebuild yourself with stoic strength and unshakable wisdom, subscribe now. Because this is only the beginning of who you're about to become. You're not just surviving psychological abuse, you're reclaiming your power.